In the history of the NFL, much has been said about the great players, the stars who left their mark on the game and defined eras with legendary performances. But for every shining star, there were those who couldn't live up to the expectations. These are the busts, the players who, despite all the hype and potential, ended up failing in epic fashion. Whether it was poor draft choices, devastating injuries, or lack of dedication, these players became infamous for all the wrong reasons. In this video, we'll take a detailed look at the 10 worst players in NFL history. These were athletes who had the tools to succeed, but for various reasons, they failed to deliver. Were their careers derailed by bad decisions, injuries, or simply a lack of preparation? And who will take the top spot on this infamous list? Stick around to find out as we explore the fall from promise to failure for these players. The Denver Broncos thought they had found their quarterback of the future when they selected Paxton Lynch in the first round of the 2016 NFL Draft. After all, they were looking for a successor to Peyton Manning after his retirement, and Lynch seemed to fit the bill with his big arm and prototypical size. However, things quickly took a turn for the worse. Lynch never managed to adapt to the speed and complexity of the NFL, and his brief stints as a starter were filled with poor decisions and lackluster performances. In his 2 starts for the Broncos, Lynch completed just 59% of his passes and threw for only 2 touchdowns while being sacked repeatedly due to his slow decision-making in the pocket. He struggled to read defenses, often holding onto the ball too long, which led to turnovers and missed opportunities. His lack of mobility in the pocket, combined with an inability to process the game quickly, became evident, and fans quickly lost hope that Lynch would develop into a reliable starter. Complicating matters further were his struggles with injuries, which limited his availability and development. Even when he was healthy, he couldn't secure the starting job, losing out to less heralded quarterbacks. The Broncos coaching staff grew frustrated with his lack of progress, and after just 2 seasons, Lynch was released. His brief and disappointing career with Denver became a cautionary tale of how difficult it can be to find a franchise quarterback in the NFL. Paxton Lynch's story is one of unfulfilled potential, as he exited the league without ever showing the talent that made him a first-round pick. His inability to develop, combined with injuries and poor performances, turned what was supposed to be a promising career into one of the biggest disappointments in recent NFL history. Lynch now stands as a reminder of how quickly high expectations can turn into forgotten potential. When the Arizona Cardinals selected Josh Rosen with the 10th overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, many believed they had found their quarterback of the future. Rosen entered the league with confidence, even famously saying, "There were 9 mistakes ahead of me." But his rookie season was anything but promising. Rosen finished with a dismal 3-10 record as a starter, throwing more interceptions than touchdowns and struggling to adjust to the speed of the NFL. Rosen's time with the Cardinals was short-lived. After just 1 season, the team moved on from him, selecting Kyler Murray with the 1st overall pick in 2019. Rosen was quickly traded to the Miami Dolphins, but his fortunes didn't improve there either. Despite multiple opportunities to prove himself, Rosen never found his footing. His decision-making was slow, and he often looked uncomfortable in the pocket, leading to poor performances that further damaged his reputation as a potential franchise quarterback. After his time in Miami, Rosen bounced around the league, spending time with teams like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and San Francisco 49ers, but he never managed to secure a starting role again. Each new opportunity seemed to further confirm what many had begun to suspect: Rosen simply wasn't capable of thriving in the NFL. His inability to adapt to different offensive schemes and consistently poor play made it clear that he wasn't the future star he was once projected to be. Josh Rosen's career has become the embodiment of the term journeyman quarterback. Despite being a top 10 pick, he never lived up to the hype, and his rapid fall from grace shows just how quickly things can go wrong in the NFL. Rosen's career continues to serve as a cautionary tale about how even highly touted prospects can struggle to adjust to the professional game. Trent Richardson entered the NFL as one of the most highly anticipated running backs in years. Selected by the Cleveland Browns with the 3rd overall pick in the 2012 NFL Draft, he was expected to bring power and versatility to their offense. Early on, Richardson showed flashes of brilliance, rushing for nearly 1,000 yards and scoring 11 touchdowns in his rookie season. However, beneath the surface, problems were brewing. Richardson struggled with vision on the field, often failing to identify running lanes and choosing to run directly into defenders. By his second season, Richardson's issues became more glaring. His yards per carry plummeted, and it became evident that he lacked the instinctive feel for the position that separates great running backs from the rest. Midway through the 2013 season, the Browns traded him to the Indianapolis Colts, hoping a change of scenery would help him rediscover his form. However, Richardson's struggles only worsened in Indianapolis. His inability to follow blockers and make quick decisions in the backfield led to more frustration from both the team and the fans. Despite his physical gifts, including strength and explosiveness, Richardson never managed to correct his flaws. He consistently chose the wrong running lanes, leading to negative plays or minimal gains. The Colts eventually benched him, and after just 2 seasons, he was released. Richardson's downfall was swift, and his once promising career had turned into one of the biggest disappointments at the running back position in recent memory. Trent Richardson's NFL journey serves as a reminder that success at the college level doesn't always translate to the pros. His struggles with vision and decision-making in the backfield overshadowed his physical talents, leading to a quick exit from the league. What was once thought to be a surefire pick turned into a colossal draft bust for both the Browns and the Colts. When the Cincinnati Bengals selected Akili Smith with the 3rd overall pick in the 1999 NFL Draft, they hoped they had found their franchise quarterback. Smith was coming off an impressive college career at Oregon, where his athleticism and arm strength made him a highly sought-after prospect. However, once he entered the NFL, it became clear that Smith was not prepared for the professional game. He struggled mightily with the complexities of NFL defenses and had difficulty reading coverages, which led to poor performances. In 4 seasons with the Bengals, Smith started just 17 games, recording only 5 touchdowns against 13 interceptions. His inability to adjust to the speed of the game, combined with poor decision-making, made him a liability on the field. He was often hesitant in the pocket, holding onto the ball too long, and his mechanics began to deteriorate under the pressure. Smith's struggles weren't just physical, he also lacked the mental preparation required to succeed at the highest level, and his development never progressed as the Bengals had hoped. The Bengals invested significant time and resources into trying to develop Smith, but he never improved enough to justify his high draft selection. His lack of preparation and failure to adapt to the demands of the NFL led to his eventual release after just 4 seasons. Smith's career came to an abrupt end, and his name quickly became synonymous with one of the biggest draft busts in franchise history. Akili Smith's story is a cautionary tale for NFL teams about the importance of preparation and mental toughness at the quarterback position. His talent in college didn't translate to the professional game, and he quickly became one of the most disappointing draft picks in recent memory. What do you think? Was Akili Smith the Bengals' biggest mistake, or was there another player who deserved that title? Let us know in the comments, and while you're here, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more NFL lists and deep dives into the history of the game. Few draft picks in NFL history came with as much hype as Tony Mandarich. Selected by the Green Bay Packers with the 2nd overall pick in the 1989 NFL Draft, Mandarich was viewed as a physical marvel. Standing 6 feet 6 inches and weighing over 300 pounds, he had an imposing presence and was known for his strength and athleticism. Some analysts went as far as to call him the best offensive line prospect ever. Expectations were sky-high, and Mandarich was expected to protect quarterbacks and dominate defensive linemen for years to come. However, the moment Mandarich stepped onto an NFL field, it became clear that physical attributes weren't enough. Despite his size, Mandarich struggled to translate his raw power into effective blocking. His footwork was poor, and he had difficulty with quicker defenders who could get around him. This led to him being beaten regularly by pass rushers, and the Packers' faith in their high draft pick quickly began to wane. What made it even worse was the fact that the 1989 draft class included future Hall of Famers like Barry Sanders, Derek Thomas, and Deion Sanders, all of whom the Packers passed on for Mandarich. Off the field, Mandarich's problems only deepened. He later admitted to using steroids throughout his college career, which helped explain his freakish physique but also raised questions about how much of his talent was natural. His struggles with drug addiction and a lack of discipline made it nearly impossible for him to meet the enormous expectations placed on his shoulders. After 3 disappointing seasons with the Packers, he was released, and many considered his NFL career to be over at that point. Mandarich did attempt a brief comeback with the Indianapolis Colts years later, but by then, it was too late to salvage his reputation. He never came close to living up to the hype that surrounded him coming out of college. While Mandarich's physical tools were extraordinary, his inability to translate them into NFL success, combined with his off-field issues, made him one of the most infamous busts in league history. His story is a stark reminder that raw athleticism alone isn't enough to succeed at the professional level. Andre Ware's NFL career serves as one of the starkest examples of how success at the college level doesn't always translate to the pros. After winning the Heisman Trophy in 1989 as the quarterback for Houston, Ware entered the NFL draft as one of the most hyped players of the year. The Detroit Lions selected him in the first round, hoping that he could bring his electrifying college play to the NFL. However, things quickly went sideways. Ware's inability to adjust to the speed and complexity of the professional game became evident early in his career. One of the biggest challenges Ware faced was the transition from the college system he thrived into the more demanding NFL schemes. At Houston, Ware operated in a high-powered spread offense that allowed him to rack up massive passing numbers. But in Detroit, he was forced to learn the complexities of the West Coast offense, which required quick decision-making and precision. Unfortunately, Ware struggled mightily with both. His mechanics broke down, and he often held onto the ball too long, leading to sacks and poor throws. Despite being given multiple opportunities to prove himself, Ware never earned the full trust of his coaches. He spent the majority of his time in the NFL as a backup, starting only 6 games in his entire career. During that time, he threw for just 5 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, a far cry from the player who had dominated in college. Ware's struggles weren't just physical. Mentally, he seemed overwhelmed by the demands of the professional game, and his confidence eroded with each failed opportunity to impress. After just 4 seasons in the league, Ware was out of the NFL, leaving behind a legacy of unmet expectations. His time in Detroit is remembered as one of the franchise's biggest draft mistakes, especially considering the hype that surrounded him coming into the league. For a Heisman winner, his brief and disappointing career is one of the most significant examples of a player who couldn't make the leap from college success to NFL stardom. David Carr's career in the NFL is a tragic tale of potential ruin by circumstance. Drafted first overall by the Houston Texans in 2002, Carr was expected to be the face of the NFL's newest franchise. With a strong arm and quick release, Carr seemed poised to lead the Texans to success. However, the Texans failed to provide him with the most critical resource for a young quarterback, a competent offensive line. In his rookie season, Carr was sacked a record 76 times, setting the tone for the rest of his career in Houston. The constant pressure Carr faced destroyed his confidence. Over time, he became hesitant in the pocket, his internal clock sped up, and he began to rush throws even when he had protection. His mechanics deteriorated, and his decision-making suffered as he became more focused on avoiding hits than executing plays. The beating Carr took in his first few seasons not only damaged his body but also his mental game, and it became clear that his development as a quarterback had been severely stunted by the constant pressure. Despite his struggles, Carr showed flashes of the talent that had made him the top pick in the draft. But the damage was done, and he never fully recovered from the physical and psychological toll of his early years with the Texans. The franchise's failure to protect him will always be seen as one of the biggest what-ifs in NFL history. Had Carr been given the support that young quarterbacks need to succeed, his career might have turned out very differently. After 5 tough seasons in Houston, Carr was released and spent the rest of his career as a backup with the New York Giants and San Francisco 49ers, among others. Although he managed to win a Super Bowl as a backup with the Giants, he never came close to living up to the expectations of a first overall pick. David Carr's career is a cautionary tale about how even the most talented quarterbacks need a solid foundation to succeed in the NFL. When the Detroit Lions selected Charles Rogers with the 2nd overall pick in the 2003 NFL Draft, they believed they had found their next superstar wide receiver. Coming off a stellar college career at Michigan State, Rogers had all the tools, size, speed, and a knack for making big plays. In college, he had set records and dominated defenses with his deep ball ability, making him one of the most coveted prospects in the draft. Unfortunately, Rogers' NFL career was derailed almost immediately by injuries and off-field issues that would ultimately lead to one of the biggest disappointments in recent NFL history. Rogers' rookie season started with promise, as he scored 2 touchdowns in his first 5 games. However, his season came to a crashing halt when he suffered a broken collarbone that sidelined him for the remainder of the year. The following season, Rogers again broke his collarbone, missing the majority of his second year as well. These back-to-back injuries severely stunted his development and left many questioning whether he would ever be able to fulfill his potential. The injuries weren't just physical, they seemed to take a mental toll on Rogers, who struggled to regain his confidence on the field. Off the field, Rogers' problems only grew. He developed a dependency on painkillers, which led to multiple suspensions for violating the NFL's substance abuse policy. His addiction made it difficult for him to stay focused on football, and his production suffered as a result. When he was on the field, he didn't show the same explosiveness that had made him a college star. His route running was inconsistent, and his ability to separate from defenders diminished. By the end of his 3rd season, the Lions had seen enough and released him, marking the end of his short-lived NFL career. Rogers finished his career with just 36 catches for 440 yards and 4 touchdowns, a far cry from the expectations that accompanied him when he entered the league. The combination of injuries and substance abuse destroyed what could have been a promising career, and Rogers became yet another cautionary tale of wasted talent. Lions fans, who had been desperate for a star receiver, were left disappointed and frustrated by yet another failed draft pick. Charles Rogers' story is a reminder that talent alone isn't enough to succeed in the NFL. Even the most physically gifted players can be derailed by injuries and poor decisions off the field. What was supposed to be a career filled with highlights and Pro Bowl appearances turned into one of the most disappointing stories in the league's history. For Detroit, Rogers' failure was emblematic of a franchise that had struggled to build a winning team for decades, and his name remains one of the most infamous in their draft history. Ryan Leaf's NFL career is the stuff of legend, but for all the wrong reasons. Selected 2nd overall in the 1998 NFL Draft by the San Diego Chargers, Leaf entered the league with sky-high expectations. Many analysts debated whether Leaf or Peyton Manning should be the first pick, as both were considered elite quarterback prospects. The Chargers were convinced that Leaf was their quarterback of the future, and they traded up in the draft to secure him. However, almost immediately after joining the NFL, it became clear that Leaf lacked the maturity and mental fortitude required to handle the pressures of being a franchise quarterback. Leaf's rookie season was a disaster. He threw 2 touchdowns and 15 interceptions, and his poor play was matched only by his volatile behavior off the field. Leaf's temperamental nature made him a nightmare for coaches and teammates. He frequently lashed out at the media and was involved in several public outbursts that only further tarnished his reputation. His infamous meltdown after a loss to the Kansas City Chiefs, where he screamed at a reporter in the locker room, became one of the defining moments of his career. On the field, Leaf continued to struggle with accuracy and decision-making. His mechanics were sloppy, and he frequently overthrew or underthrew receivers. Worse yet, he lacked the work ethic and preparation needed to improve. While other quarterbacks were spending extra time in the film room, Leaf seemed uninterested in putting in the effort required to succeed. His relationships with coaches deteriorated, and by the end of his second season, it was clear that the Chargers had made a monumental mistake. After just 3 seasons, the Chargers cut Leaf, and his career spiraled even further. He had brief stints with the Dallas Cowboys and Seattle Seahawks, but his reputation as a locker room cancer and his continued poor play ensured that his NFL days were numbered. Leaf finished his career with 14 touchdowns, 36 interceptions, and a legacy as one of the biggest busts in the history of the league. What makes Leaf's failure even more infamous is the fact that he was drafted right behind Peyton Manning, who went on to become one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. The contrast between their careers couldn't be more stark, and Leaf's name has since become synonymous with the word bust. His downfall serves as a reminder that talent alone isn't enough to succeed in the NFL. Mental toughness, preparation, and maturity are equally important. Leaf's story will forever be a cautionary tale for NFL teams evaluating future quarterbacks. Topping the list as the biggest bust in NFL history is JaMarcus Russell, a name that has become synonymous with failure in the league. Drafted first overall by the Oakland Raiders in the 2007 NFL Draft, Russell was touted as the next big thing. Standing at 6 feet 6 inches and weighing 260 pounds, Russell possessed the ideal size and arm strength that scouts drool over. His ability to throw the ball 70 yards with ease created massive hype, with many believing he could transform the Raiders into contenders. However, all that potential would soon unravel, as Russell's lack of work ethic and dedication became glaring issues. The troubles began almost immediately with a lengthy contract holdout that kept him away from the Raiders' training camp. By the time he joined the team, he was already behind in his development. When he finally took the field, it was clear that the gap was too much to overcome. Russell's rookie season showed brief flashes of his talent, but they were quickly overshadowed by poor decision-making, inaccuracy, and an alarming inability to read NFL defenses. His mechanics were a mess, and he often looked unprepared, overwhelmed by the speed of the game. These issues persisted throughout his career. During his 3 seasons with the Raiders, Russell threw only 18 touchdowns compared to 23 interceptions. His completion percentage hovered around 50%, which is shockingly low for a quarterback drafted at the top of the draft. Worse yet, his work ethic became a constant point of concern. One of the most infamous stories about his time in Oakland involves the coaching staff giving him blank DVDs, claiming they contained game film. When Russell later claimed he had watched the film, the staff knew he hadn't even bothered to check it, solidifying his reputation as a player who lacked dedication. As if the on-field struggles weren't enough, Russell's conditioning also became an issue. He showed up to training camps overweight and out of shape, further diminishing his already declining performance. Instead of progressing, Russell seemed to regress each season. He struggled with weight issues, showing a lack of personal accountability for his fitness and preparation. The Raiders, desperate for a solution at quarterback, grew increasingly frustrated with his inability to step up as a leader or show any signs of improvement. By the end of his 3rd season, their patience had run out. After being released by the Raiders, no other NFL team was willing to give Russell a second chance, which is rare for a quarterback with his physical gifts. His departure from the league was swift and final. What makes Russell's downfall even more striking is how much raw talent he possessed. His story serves as a stark reminder that natural ability means little without the drive and discipline to maximize it. He will forever be remembered as the ultimate bust, a player who had all the tools but none of the work ethic to back it up. If you're curious to dive deeper into JaMarcus Russell's career, we've created an entire video that breaks down every aspect of his rise and fall, from his promising college days to his disastrous NFL stint. You can check out that video by clicking the card at the end of this one. Be sure to watch it for a detailed look into how Russell's career became the cautionary tale it is today. His legacy remains a vivid example of wasted potential in the NFL, solidifying him as the biggest draft bust in history. From quarterbacks who never lived up to the hype, to running backs and wide receivers who failed to deliver, the players on this list all shared one thing in common: unrealized potential. Whether it was due to injuries, poor work ethic, or simply not being able to adjust to the professional level, these players stand out as some of the biggest disappointments in NFL history. Drafting players is always a gamble, and unfortunately for the teams involved, these picks didn't pan out the way they had hoped. What do you think? Did we miss anyone, or do you agree with our rankings of the worst players in NFL history? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're interested in more deep dives into the highs and lows of the NFL, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. There's always more to learn about the game we love, and we'll be back with more stories that shape the NFL, both the legends and the letdowns. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.